The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Meridian colony, a small human settlement perched on the edge of explored territory. Jay Park sat in the control center, his eyes fixed on the holographic displays that flickered with subtle movement. Outside, the planet's twin moons cast long shadows across rocky plains and scattered agricultural domes. Something was different today. The usual quiet of deep space monitoring felt charged with an unusual tension. Young-Soo Kim, the colony's senior defense analyst, noticed it first, a faint disturbance at the very edge of their long-range sensors. Most would have dismissed it as cosmic background noise, but not here. Not on Meridian. The colony wasn't like other human settlements. Established 5 years ago, it represented a unique experiment in frontier survival. Beneath its seemingly simple exterior, a complex network of advanced technologies hummed with quiet efficiency. Every piece of equipment, every structure had multiple purposes. Survival was never about single-function solutions. Jay watched as Young-Soo's fingers danced across the holographic interface. Small data points began to cluster, forming patterns that spoke of something massive approaching. Not a natural phenomenon. Not random. Intentional. Incoming, Young-Soo muttered, his voice calm but carrying an edge of professional alertness. The first signs were subtle, a quantum displacement in the local space-time continuum, a microscopic shift in electromagnetic background radiation. To an untrained observer, these would mean nothing, but to the crew of Meridian, they were alarm bells. Hara Choi, the colony's chief strategist, entered the control room. She didn't ask questions. She simply looked at the displays, her eyes quickly processing the incoming data. A slight smile crossed her face, not of fear, but of calculated preparation. Alien approach, she stated. Not a question. A confirmation. The Zarkonian fleet was massive, though they didn't know that yet. What they knew was that something large was coming. Something with purpose and intent. The colony's defensive systems began their silent preparation, not with loud sirens or dramatic warnings, but with precise, calculated adjustments. Underground systems, disguised as agricultural, maintenance equipment, started to recalibrate. Quantum-entangled communication networks shifted into high-alert mode. Sensors that appeared to monitor soil moisture and crop growth were actually complex scanning arrays, capable of analyzing incoming threats with incredible precision. Jay Park watched the preparations with a sense of calm. This colony wasn't just a settlement. It was a carefully designed trap, waiting to be sprung. The approaching vessels were massive, kilometers long, casting dark shadows across the sensor arrays. They moved with a predatory grace, each movement calculated and precise. The Zarkonians believed they were approaching an easy target. A simple human colony, isolated and vulnerable. They were about to learn a very different lesson. Young-Soo's fingers moved across the interface, triggering a series of passive defense protocols. Nothing aggressive, nothing that would immediately reveal their true capabilities. Just a series of subtle preparations that would look, to an outside observer, like routine colony maintenance. 30 minutes to potential contact, he announced. Hera nodded, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. Every pixel, every subtle color change told a story of incoming danger and carefully prepared resistance. The agricultural domes outside remained peaceful. Solar panels continued their steady tracking of the system's primary star. Robotic farming units moved across carefully managed fields. To any external observation, this was just another day on a remote human colony. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary was preparing to happen. The Zarkonian fleet was about to discover that not all human colonies are what they appear to be, and Meridian was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. Jay Park allowed himself a slight smile. The trap was set. All they needed now was for the prey to walk right in. The first wave of Zarkonian dropships descended through Meridian's atmosphere like metallic predators. Their hulls gleamed with advanced armor, weapons systems primed and ready. Commander Krell Voss watched from the main battleship, expecting a swift and effortless conquest. Young-Soo Kim watched them come. The colony's defense systems remained intentionally passive. Agricultural domes continued their peaceful rotation. Robotic harvesters moved slowly across rocky fields. Nothing suggested the elaborate trap waiting to be sprung. The dropships entered lower atmosphere. Their massive engines created rippling heat waves across the landscape. Inside each vessel, Zarkonian combat units checked their weapons, anticipating minimal resistance. They had conquered hundreds of colonies. This would be no different. They were wrong. As the first dropships approached landing zones, strange electromagnetic disruptions began, subtle at first. A slight shimmer in communication systems, a tiny fluctuation in navigation controls. Most pilots wouldn't have noticed, but these were precise disturbances, carefully engineered. The colony's quantum disruption fields activated. 3 dropships suddenly lost navigation. Their sophisticated guidance systems became useless chunks of complex technology. One vessel spiraled wildly, crashing into a rocky outcrop with a thunderous explosion. Another tilted sideways, its anti-gravity systems mysteriously failing. Krell Voss watched in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered, watching multiple ships experiencing systematic failures. Hera Choi, standing beside J. Park in the hidden underground control center, allowed herself a small smile. Their defensive systems were working perfectly. Each disruption was calculated, precise, designed to create maximum confusion with minimal direct engagement. The remaining dropships attempted emergency landings. Their crews, trained for countless planetary invasions, struggled to maintain control. But Meridian's defensive network was unlike anything they had encountered before. Microscopic nanomachines, disguised within seemingly ordinary agricultural equipment, began their silent work. They didn't attack directly. Instead, they interfered, disrupting, confusing, creating chaos. Communication systems between Zarkonian ships became garbled. Tactical displays showed conflicting information. What should have been a simple invasion was turning into a nightmare of technological warfare. Another dropship crashed, then another. The Zarkonian ground teams that managed to land found themselves in a landscape that seemed to resist their every move. Sensor equipment malfunctioned. Communication channels became unreliable. Their advanced combat suits experienced unexpected power fluctuations. J. Park watched the invasion unfold like a carefully choreographed dance. "They thought we were just farmers," he said quietly to Yongsu. "They didn't understand that on the frontier survival means being more than what you appear." The colony's defensive systems were elegant in their complexity. No direct weapons. No obvious military infrastructure. Just a network of intelligent, adaptive technologies designed to make invasion impossible. Krell Voss realized something was fundamentally wrong. This wasn't resistance. This was systematic destruction of their invasion capabilities. More dropships fell, not destroyed, just neutralized. By the invasion's first hour, over 60% of the Zarkonian landing force had been rendered ineffective, not through weapons, through pure technological manipulation. The remaining alien soldiers found themselves in a landscape that seemed to actively resist their presence. Equipment failed, communications dropped. Their sophisticated invasion plan was unraveling with each passing minute. Hera Choi's fingers moved across holographic displays, fine-tuning the colony's defensive response. Each adjustment was precise, calculated to maximize confusion and minimize direct conflict. "They came looking for a weak colony," Yongsu commented. "They found something else entirely." As the last dropship struggled to maintain any semblance of operational capability, it became clear. Meridian was not a target. It was a trap. And the Zarkonians had walked right into it. The invasion had failed before it truly began. The rocky landscape of Meridian transformed. What appeared moments ago as simple agricultural equipment began to shift and reconfigure. Robotic harvesters became mobile defense platforms. Solar panels unfolded into complex sensor arrays. Irrigation systems converted into precision targeting networks. Hara Choi watched the metamorphosis with clinical precision. The remaining Zarkonian ground units found themselves surrounded by technology that defied their understanding. Farming drones now moved with tactical intelligence, their agricultural sensors repurposed into advanced scanning systems. Each machine communicated through quantum-encrypted channels, creating a living, breathing defensive network. Nanoswarms emerged from hidden compartments within seemingly ordinary equipment. Microscopic machines that could deconstruct, analyze, and neutralize advanced alien technology in seconds. They moved like liquid metal, changing shape and purpose with each moment. Commander Krell Voss watched in growing horror through his damaged communication systems. His tactical displays showed impossible scenarios: weapons systems failing, communication networks collapsing, entire squads of elite Zarkonian soldiers rendered helpless by technology they couldn't comprehend. A mining drone transformed. Its drilling mechanism became a precision electromagnetic disruptor. Another agricultural sorting machine converted its internal systems into a complex jamming device. What looked like a simple water purification unit became a sophisticated electronic warfare platform. Young-Soo Kim's fingers danced across holographic interfaces. Each movement synchronized the colony's defensive network with mathematical perfection. No wasted energy, no unnecessary movement. Pure, calculated efficiency. The Zarkonian. Soldiers found their most advanced combat suits becoming progressively less functional. Adaptive nanomachines infiltrated their systems, breaking down complex technologies from the inside. Weapon systems became useless. Communication devices turned into paperweights. J. Park observed the counter-invasion with calm detachment. "We're not fighting," he said quietly to Hera. "We're simply making their technology forget how to work." The landscape itself seemed to resist the alien invasion. Rocks shifted subtly. Soil composition changed microscopically. What appeared to be simple terrain was actually an elaborate, living defensive system. One Zarkonian squad attempted to establish a defensive perimeter. Within minutes, their equipment began to fail. Communication systems collapsed. Weapon cooling mechanisms mysteriously shut down. Their advanced tactical gear became nothing more than expensive clothing. Hera's nanoswarms continued their silent work. They didn't destroy, they deconfigured, reprogrammed, transformed complex technological systems into confused, non-functional units. A dropship that had managed a rough landing suddenly found its systems completely neutralized. Its advanced quantum drives became nothing more than expensive metal containers. Soldiers inside discovered their most sophisticated equipment was now useless. The colony's defensive network was a living organism, adaptive, intelligent, always one step ahead. Krell Voss realized they were no longer conducting an invasion. They were being systematically dismantled by a technology so advanced it appeared almost magical. Quantum-entangled communication networks allowed the colony's defensive systems to predict and counter every Zarkonian move before it happened. Each alien tactical decision was already known, already neutralized before it could be implemented. "They're not fighting back," one Zarkonian tactical officer reported in growing panic. "They're solving us." Farming equipment continued to move across fields. Solar panels tracked the system's star. To an outside observer, nothing seemed unusual. But beneath the surface, a technological massacre was happening with clinical, calculated precision. No weapons fired. No traditional combat occurred. Just a systematic destruction of technological capability. J. Park watched the final stages of the counter-invasion. A simple smile crossed his face. This was frontier survival. This was humanity's true strength. Not muscle, not traditional warfare. Pure, adaptive, intelligence. The Zarkonian invasion was over, and they hadn't even understood what hit them. The silence was the most terrifying weapon. Krell Voss stared at communication systems that flickered with strange encrypted messages. Not attacks, not threats. Something far more dangerous. Calculated psychological disruption. The first transmission arrived without warning, a simple data stream that penetrated Zarkonian communication networks with impossible ease. It contained fragments, scattered memories, personal communications, internal strategic discussions, but subtly altered, just enough to create doubt. Zarkonian, soldiers began experiencing strange communication interruptions, their secure channels filled with whispers, fragments of conversations that suggested internal betrayal. Command structures started questioning themselves. Hera Choi understood psychological warfare was about creating uncertainty. Messages targeted specific communication frequencies, each transmission designed to exploit Zarkonian hierarchical weaknesses. Senior commanders received encrypted fragments suggesting junior officers were planning alternative strategies. Junior officers received hints of potential leadership failures. The colony's advanced AI systems worked silently. They didn't just intercept communications, they reconstructed them, created narrative threads that seemed completely authentic. Small seeds of doubt that would grow into massive psychological fractures. One transmission showed a fabricated conversation, suggesting the invasion was actually a mistaken political maneuver. Another implied certain commander units were deliberately sacrificing lower-ranked soldiers. Each message was mathematically crafted to maximum psychological impact. Yongsoo Kim monitored the psychological breakdown with scientific precision. The Zarkonian communication network began to collapse from within, not through direct attack, through pure psychological manipulation. Soldiers started questioning orders. Commanders lost trust in their immediate superiors. The invasion's internal structure began to crumble. Jay Park watched the systematic destruction of alien morale. "We're not fighting an army," he told Hera. "We're dismantling a psychological construct." Quantum-encrypted messages continued their silent assault, each transmission more sophisticated than the last. The colony's AI systems could predict Zarkonian response patterns with terrifying accuracy. They knew exactly which psychological triggers would create maximum confusion. Commander Krell Voss found himself paralyzed. His communication systems showed conflicting information. Strategic plans seemed to dissolve. Troop movements became impossible to coordinate. The more he tried to restore order, the more chaos emerged. The colony transformed psychological warfare into an art form. Messages suggested potential mutinies, implied hidden agendas, created narrative threads that made each Zarkonian soldier question their purpose, their leadership, their entire mission. No direct lies, just carefully constructed uncertainty. Zarkonian tactical systems began experiencing strange glitches. Communication channels filled with whispers of potential failure, each message designed to create maximum psychological friction. Junior officers started questioning senior commanders. Senior commanders became suspicious of their own strategic decisions. The invasion's internal structure began to collapse from pure psychological pressure. "Something is wrong," became the repeated communication across Zarkonian channels. Hera's smile was subtle, precise. Each psychological attack was a surgical strike against alien cohesion. The colony didn't need weapons. They were dismantling an entire invasion force through pure information manipulation, creating uncertainty, destroying confidence, transforming a military operation into a psychological nightmare. Krell Voss realized they were no longer conducting an invasion. They were being systematically broken down, not through force, through pure, calculated psychological manipulation. The Zarkonian fleet's communication networks transformed into a landscape of confusion. Every secure channel became a potential source of doubt. Every strategic discussion became a potential betrayal. Jay Park watched the final stages of psychological destruction. No shots fired, no traditional warfare implemented, just a systematic breakdown of alien confidence. The invasion was over, and the Zarkonians hadn't even understood the weapon used against them: psychological warfare, humanity's most sophisticated technology. The final moments approached with calculated precision. Krell Voss watched in horror as his entire invasion fleet began to disintegrate, not through weapons, through pure technological manipulation. The Meridian colony had transformed from a seemingly simple settlement into a nightmare of adaptive intelligence. Jay Park's fingers moved across quantum-encrypted interfaces, Each movement triggered cascading system disruptions across the Zarkonian fleet. Their most advanced technologies became weapons turned against themselves. The colony's adaptive AI systems had done more than just defend. They had learned, analyzed, prepared a comprehensive counterattack that would become a legendary moment in human frontier history. Communication systems across the Zarkonian fleet suddenly shifted. Their own encrypted channels became conduits of destruction. Navigational computers began executing impossible commands. Weapon systems targeted friendly vessels. Defensive networks collapsed from internal confusion. Hera Choi watched the systematic dismantling with clinical detachment. One by one, Zarkonian ships lost functionality. Not destroyed, transformed. Their most advanced technologies became complex puzzles that solved themselves into total destruction. Quantum drives became self-destructing mechanisms. Advanced weapon systems turned into elaborate traps. Yong-Soo, Kim monitored the final stages of the counterattack. Each movement was precise, calculated, a dance of technological warfare unlike anything the Zarkonians had ever encountered. The colony's defensive network wasn't just fighting. It was solving the entire invasion like an elaborate mathematical problem. Krelvos realized too late that they had underestimated humanity. This wasn't a colony. This was a technological fortress designed to make invasion impossible. Every system, every piece of equipment had multiple purposes. Survival wasn't about fighting. It was about adaptation. Zarkonian ships began colliding, not through direct intervention, through pure technological manipulation. Navigation systems confused, communication channels destroyed. Their most sophisticated technologies became instruments of their own destruction. Retreat became a meaningless word. The colony's quantum-entangled communication network had already predicted and neutralized every possible escape route. Each Zarkonian tactical decision was known, analyzed, and countered before it could be implemented. Massive battleships suddenly found themselves drifting, weapon systems turning against their own vessels, communication networks transforming into chaos generators. The invasion fleet became a self-destroying mechanism. J. Park's final command was simple. Not an attack, a complete systemic dissolution. Barry, Zarkonian fleet's most advanced technologies became their own worst enemies. Quantum drives collapsed. Communication networks transformed into pure entropy. What had been a powerful invasion force became a collection of disabled technological artifacts. Hera watched the final moments with a subtle smile. No traditional warfare, no massive explosions, just a systematic mathematical destruction of technological capability. Commander Krelvos's final communication was a simple transmission of complete confusion. His most advanced systems had become useless. The invasion was over, and they hadn't even understood what happened. The Meridian colony stood unchanged. Solar panels continued tracking the system's star. Agricultural domes rotated peacefully. Robotic systems moved across rocky landscapes. Nothing suggested the massive technological warfare that had just occurred. Yong-Soo Kim completed the final system logs. Each movement, each tactical decision recorded with mathematical precision. They came looking for a weak colony, he said quietly to Jay. They found something else entirely. The colony had transformed an invasion into a lesson, a demonstration of humanity's true strength, not through traditional warfare, through pure adaptive intelligence. As the last Zarkonian vessel drifted, helplessly, the message was clear. The human frontier was not a place for easy conquests. It was a landscape of pure, calculated survival. The invasion was over. Humanity had won. And they hadn't fired a single traditional weapon.